let's talk about some tiny plants with tiny pots, shall we? So you probably know at this point that plants do need room, okay? I'm not gonna sit here and say that any plant can go into a 1-inch dollhouse plant pot, because it can't. And if my voice sounds weird, I've got a bit of a cold and my uvula is a bit like messy at the moment, so it's kind of making me sound a bit throaty, which is really fun. So if you couldn't already guess, something's a bit different about me. No, I'm still gay, still very lefty, and still pretty thick, but definitely a lot less hair. What can I say? But now that we're over that hump of it all, let's actually talk about the plants that we all want to see today, shall we? So I hit up IKEA the other day, and I got this lovely coffee table. It was only like £27 or something, and I intend to use it as a potting station. As you can see, it's got quite a few terracotta pots on it, as well as some baby frogs, and also my snakes underneath it, which is, I mean, it is, if there's any place in the room we could fit, so. But we're going to talk about options for tiny pots. So if you ever go into like a charity shop or a thrift store or an antique shop and you see these gorgeous little like mini ceramic like things, because they're not pots usually, they're things like this little mint sauce jug. It's a little jug, it's a little tiny jug, it's a little tiny gorgeous little jug with this like sweet little ceramic, and I put a bloody peperonia in it because it looks really bloody cute. So that's actually a really good option for lots of small planters. But so you go into one of these shops and you see like this gorgeous little ceramic thing, this little tiny or little brass thing or little copper thing, but watch out for those because they can have some lasting issues of soil. But anyway, you see this gorgeous little thing and you think, oh, that would look so cute with a plant in it. There are a few things you need to kind of go through before you can go from A to B there. So, firstly, just how big is it? If it is super duper tiny and it's adorable, there are options, and those options are actually quite extensive, to be honest. If I ever see something that's like super duper tiny and I know that if there was soil in it, it just wouldn't make a difference, because it would be like adding a drop of water every 10 minutes to keep the thing hydrated or whatever was planted in there, you have some options. So one of my favourite things to do is go into charity shops and find weird little jugs. Like, I'm pretty sure there's some mint sauce or like a gravy jug. I actually think that's a milk jug, that tiny little one. Anyway, air plants are your friend. If you find something that is so small that you will not be able to put any soil into, you can use air plants. They are so ubiquitous and they look so cool. Check this out. So I went to this little shop in the middle of Manchester, and they were selling these tiny cacti in these tiny pots. And I knew that was like, oh, that's not going to go well. They're going to be repotting like 10 days ago. But the tiny little pots are perfect for little air plants. And then you can have like these little tiny, just adorable little mini plants. Like you're literally living in a dollhouse, and it makes you feel like a giant, and it's so much fun. And interchangeable. Don't like the iron anther? Throw the iron anther into another pot. Put this weird one, which I've completely forgotten the name of, into it. Make it look like a crazy onion. Do what you want, you know? There's no rules. That's the great thing about air plants. Like, as long as you get enough light, as long as you make sure you're spraying them and or dunking them, depending on the species, and blah blah blah. Refer to my Bromelia video for some plant tips. But, so you've found something that can't have soil. Great, take it home, get an air plant. You found something that is tiny, but definitely can hold like a little bit of soil. So, you need to start getting a bit creative. And we'll go back to this little milk jug, because it's a good example. So, this tiny little milk jug fits a 5cm pot in it perfectly. It also obviously wasn't intended for this, but because it's got a little lip for the spout, it makes it super easy to like water it loads and leave it for a few minutes and then just literally just tip out the excess water. Not intentional by any means, but these fun little things you find when you start using weird little thrifty items. But a good plant option for like a little kind of 2-inch or 5cm pot is essentially anything peperomia, to be honest with you. Like this little peperomia piccolabanda is in it's not even in a 5cm pot, it's literally in half of a tiny little pot that I fully cut up to fit into this unique, there we go, into this unique little ceramic micro pot. I think it's actually meant to be like a little vase for dried flowers, but piccolabanda, cute, you know? And the good thing about peperomia is they really don't like too much water, so letting them dry out in here and then give them a good thorough watering and then putting them back in here, they'll just have the best time. And to prove to you that this is, you know, not me just saying this and this is, I've just done this for today to show you and that's all a farce, let me show you this peperomia piccolabanda, which is this crazy like beast of a plant. Come on, focus for me. Come on. God, why is it struggling so much to focus? Come on. Okay, so she's a bit dilapidated because I just moved her. She wasn't happy, so she's got a few leaves that are coming off right now. But this plant is crazy. It's in a 5cm pot. It's been in a 5cm pot for over a year and a half, and it keeps growing these mental tree-like structures straight out of the pot. Like, peperomia are just so bloody cool and so bloody interesting and so bloody hardy that they make perfect inhabitants for tiny little pots like this. This is like barely a centimetre bigger than the other one. The only difference between the two is time. This one's been growing in here for about a year and a half, that one's been growing in there for about 2 months. But you don't have to go down the peperomia route. I know that some people kind of scoff at peperomia, which is okay. You know, you're allowed to not like certain families and groups of plants. I won't hold it against you. But there are other options yet. So, other options for tiny pots outside of sort of thrifty ceramics is you can go down the route of unglazed terracotta kitschy pots, I like to call them anyway. So, there are quite a few we can talk about here today. So again, this is the kind of pot I'm talking about. Either these little micro ceramics or these little pots here. Now these aren't actually supposed to be plant pots, these are Indian disposable teapots. So for example, you're on the Darjeeling Express and you just had some beautiful oolong and you have yourself a good sip, you savour those earthy tones and tastes, and you think to yourself, gosh, I wish I could just throw this cup away. And you can, out the window into the soil. Because it's made of unglazed clay, it breaks down in the soil pretty quickly. So these actually make fantastic little pots for plants. because they are unglazed. They are incredibly porous, which is why I can plant things like bromeliads inside of them with no issue. These are not sitting in cash pose, these are planted directly into this, which is a dangerous game, I know, because they've got no drainage. But the substrate I use for all my Neorigelias and Veraceae and Quisnalias, everything I've got here, is heavy in orchid bark chunks, so it's extremely airy. And because you water mainly from the cups anyway, you're not really putting much water down here. You're only really lightly moistening the substrate medium once in a while. So these make fantastic miniature pot plants. Bromeliads 101. Again, if you've got any extra kind of bromeliad orientated questions on care, refer to my video. I go over a few different things. It's a whole lot of fun. I'll show you some really fun bromeliads and names. Now, the most common thing you're going to see in tiny pots, no matter where you go, is going to be cacti and succulents. Oh, I got a bit phallic. Well, that is quite phallic. Well, that is very, very phallic. Well, oh well. So, cacti and succulents. I've got a little array of both here. One is my this Lithops I've had for about 4 years, and if it'll focus, I've had this Lithops for about 4 years and it just will not die. I don't think it will ever die. It started as like 4 plants, 4 heads, and they're supposed to kind of reproduce by forming a new plant in the middle and then coming out and then flowering and then kind of completing a life cycle, but it just seems stuck in this stasis of just only ever being one adult plant, which is strange. An old man cactus, an Espositia? So, this is an Espostoa cactus, or an old man cactus. This is in a tiny little terracotta pot with a little tiny drainage hole, little bit of substrate. You know, just having the best time. And yes, it's growing in a pretty phallic manner, but I love it nonetheless. In fact, I might actually love it just a little bit more. Oh, gross. And you can also use the non-draining pots for cacti. This is a Labivia nigristina, and it's just in a cachepot inside. And the fantastic thing about this is, even though I only water it very, very lightly, and I mean very, very lightly, if there's a little bit of overflow at the bottom, this material is so quick to just suck it up that there's never a risk of root rot. I've got succulents that are planted directly into these that have been in there for 2-3 years. And yeah, they don't grow super big because there isn't like heaps of room for roots, but they've never gotten root rot, which is so cool because like these pots are just like little magical water sucking vessels, which is great for cacti, but don't go planting a peace lily in one of these because you will not have a good time. Second to last talking point for plants for tiny pots is orchids. You can get a variety of orchids, both tiny and large. If we're talking about Phalaenopsis, the amount of hybrids and weird cultivars there are. This is just a miniature Phalaenopsis that I got from IKEA. You know, it was like a quid because they thought it died because the flower stopped. But it's literally in another one of those tiny little terracotta pots with a little bit of drainage, some soil and orchid bark and perlite. These are happy plants even though they're in tiny pots. And I love the look of like huge waxy leaves coming out of like the most ridiculously tiny little tiny pot. I think that's just so bloody cool, you know. final talking point. So, the very best way to use tiny pots in a growing manner is to use them inside a terrarium. Now, I know that sounds a bit weird, but think of it like a miniature greenhouse. And this way, you're not planting directly into the greenhouse. You can still kind of go in, change things if they need changing, treat things if they need treating, and arrange things differently if you get bored of it. Now, I won't sit here and say that it's the most eloquent of displays, but you would be remiss not to tell me that every single cutting of philodendron in here is not doing fantastic in tiny, tiny little pots. My melanochrysum has got a whole new leaf that was attached to the fresh cutting that did not fall off, that just continued to unfurl once I put it in this humid environment, and is now fully sustained by new roots. Same goes for the Brandtianum. This pink princess was sat in water for a month and a half. I put it in here for less than 4 days. It's pushing out a whole new leaf. You kidding me? This is good stuff. So, I highly recommend using things with drainage in this situation. So, you can use those cutesy little terracottas with the drainage, like this one. You can definitely use the non-draining terracottas. Just make sure that if you're planting into them, they're in a cashpo inside of a terrarium. Just feels like a bit of a waste, to be honest. But best thing to use would be these slightly larger mini terracottas with drainage, because these can sit in there perfectly, and they probably look a bit better than the plastic that I've got in there currently. But like I said, this is the best way to use it. You can have plants growing out of tiny little things. Yeah, they're in an enclosed space, which kind of defeats the purpose a little bit of a tiny little space being taken up by a tiny little plant. But I figured I should probably just cover all my bases and mention them anyway, and I really like doing it, so. Oh, that was a cheeky video on tiny little pots and tiny little plants for them. If you have any questions about certain things, I guarantee that I've forgotten a few things, because I always bloody do. I'll try and put down links to where I find certain things, but I will admit that so much of it is thrifted. You just have to walk into a local charity shop or a thrift shop and just find stuff. It's so much fun. Rummage through, have a great time, you know? But this video is going to be really long anyway, so thank you all for watching. Feel free to subscribe and join the Deathly Cult. I love you all and have a fantastic week.